My name is Erin, and the topic of my talk today is very different from the other talks that I usually give to people. The topic of my talk is about me, actually, and I feel a little awkward about that because these talks were so inspiring. But thank you, everybody, for being here to listen to my story and how that connects to dreams and humanity and technology. And thank you, DHT, for inviting me. So, the topic today is called Lead with Courage, and it's, as it says, a journey of self-discovery and the pursuit of impact. My name is Erin Willett, and I am currently today a brand and culture strategist. And what that means is that I help companies to connect with themselves. I help them to connect with what makes them unique and what makes them different. And then I help them to use that in order to more deeply connect with the stakeholders around them that are going to help them to succeed. So they can build strategic bonds with their team, with their market, with their partners, with their investors. But it took me a while to get to the point where I could say I was a brand and culture strategist. In fact, it took me about 7 years. And so I'm going to take you back, actually even more. The beginning of this story starts in 2007 at the John Molson School of Business, and I was studying in marketing at the time. I always was kind of battling back and forth between my business side, or my want to make money and be structured and have great impact, and my more artistic side and my expressive creative side. And so I chose marketing at the John Molson School of Business, but the truth was that I didn't fit into the box, whatever that box looked like. And I struggled with finding a space for myself there. I, at the time, was working at a property management firm, and a business peer of mine who was very much the traditional kind of idea of what a business person would be, business suit, BMW, intense attitude, and lots of coffee. He said, "Erin, I don't know what you're doing in business school. You care too much to be in business school. They're going to eat you alive. You're like a Berenstain Bear," which is the next slide here. Do you know the Berenstain Bears? Yes? So the Berenstain Bears teach you how to be good human beings. They show you how to care. They show you how to be members of society. And he was saying that I cared like a Berenstain Bear as if it was an insult. He said I was too soft. And so he started calling me Erin Berenstain. And Erin Berenstain became EB. And EB became Ebes. And this was the birth of Ebes Berenstain. And that's me, or that's one of my names. And Ebes Berenstain was a declaration for me because it was a nickname that people started using at this company, but it happened to be a nickname that I wanted to claim. Almost as if I wanted to kind of push back against them, I said, you know what, maybe I do care too much. Maybe I am too creative. Maybe I don't fit in that marketing or business world, but I'm going to have this space that's mine. And so I used this name Ebes Berenstain during the last couple of years of my degree in marketing to claim a space, to declare who I was as an individual. And when I graduated from John Molson in 2010, I didn't want to go with one of the 4 options available to marketing students. I didn't feel like a junior account manager or whatever. I didn't want to do one of those things, and so I decided to study graphic design. At this point in the presentation, you'll notice some sweeping lines that we start to see, and this is all connected to the brand and culture development process that I currently use with my clients. So you'll be seeing those coming up. And note whether they're sweeping up or sweeping down. So design school year, this was an intensive program that I did at Interdec. 1 year, really, really intense, 40 hours a week. I thrived, it was amazing. And out of school, I got hired by an interior design company, and I thought, oh my God, yay! They're going to let me be creative and express myself and be a part of strategy. It's going to be the best thing ever. And it was so not the best thing ever. In fact, it was creatively like the worst point in my life. It was very, very low. I couldn't help with any strategy. I couldn't help with any vision. In fact, I just existed there as an employee to create output. I was just along an assembly line. I was doing things, and then I was passing them on, and that was it, and my voice didn't really matter. But thankfully, about 5 months in, I had a flash on January 4th, 2012, and it was a very, very clear moment in my mind, and I'm so thankful I had it. I was walking down the street. It was a winter day. It was very cold, and the sun was shining. And I saw the name Ebbs. That's the nickname, by the way, I just told you about, yeah. So I saw the name Ebbs, and I remembered that I don't have to climb a ladder that somebody else decided I need to climb. I don't need to walk a path that someone else determines I need to walk. I can walk my own path, and I can be Ebbs because I am Ebbs. And so the next day, on January 5th, 2012, I quit that job, and I decided that I was going to start freelancing. At the time, I was doing graphic design with what ended up being a ton of startups and entrepreneurs. I kind of fell into the space. Big ups, Montreal New Tech. You know, I guess we run in the same crowd. And I was working with a lot of startups, and I, on one hand, had a really intense sense of identity. These were some of the pieces that I'd created back then. Obviously a lot about me and my own identity. I was kind of trying to express myself and find my space through my art. And I had an incredible sense of creativity and decisiveness and connection because I was becoming Ebbs, I guess. I'd kind of envisioned this version of Ebbs that was this great version of me, and I'd stepped into the role. Meanwhile, I was working with entrepreneurs and tech companies who, when I would ask them who they were, they'd say, well, we just want a logo that looks like Google, or we want packaging like Apple, and we're the Uber of whatever. Everybody would say that, and I was like, give me something more. You know, you are not your product or service here, and nobody cares about your product or service. Like, tell us about yourself here. Give me something to latch onto. And they had a really, really hard time telling me about their own identity. And so, you know, what ended up happening as a graphic designer was that the work that I was doing, because I didn't know them, was really subpar. Because I wasn't inspired, and because they weren't able to tell me who they were. And so we get caught in these endless rounds of edits. And I realized that they were just getting in line behind everybody else. You know, why do you want to be the Google and the Apple and the Uber? Those spots are already taken, and there are hundreds of thousands of people trying to be them right now. Why don't you be you? And I had a flash. I think this is the next slide. So I was doing a lot of writing at the time around Ebbs and what that identity meant for me. And I realized as I was doing this Ebbs work and then writing that it wasn't that the clients that I was working with didn't have an identity. It was that they hadn't done the work to tap into the identity. All of you here have a sense of self. All the companies out there have individuality, they have identities. It's just that we don't take the time to get to know ourselves because we're rushed through systems. And companies feel that they need to make decisions very, very quickly and jump to action and jump to tactics and jump to strategies. But they don't know if those things are right for them because they haven't done the work to tap into their identity. And so in doing all this writing, Tap Into Your Identity, this line was born in 2013. At this point, I started developing a process. Tapping into your identity, a recipe for a compelling brand. My early days of this work with companies, I started mapping it out. Obviously, I was doing a lot of design at the time. And it looked something like this. Okay, we have our x-axis, strength of corporate identity, and our y, our creative confidence here. The more tapped into your creative identity, the more tapped into your creative confidence. Your creative confidence as a company and as an individual becomes larger and easier to connect with when you have a stronger sense of self. And what that does for you creatively as a team is that it allows you to push past your boundaries. Because you think past what the industry expects of you or what your market asks of you, and you are driven by this sense of purpose and a sense of self. And that means that your brand becomes extremely magnetic and exciting. So, where are we at? From 2013 to 2015, I wore every single hat that I could wear. I'm going to do identity work, I'm going to do design work, I'm going to do creative direction, I'm going to do marketing strategy, because I realized that people weren't ready yet to just talk about their identities, and companies weren't ready to pay me to do brand and culture work. And so I would sneak it in. I'd say, don't worry, we're going to get to the logo, we're going to get to the website, but I need to do this other stuff, and trust me, it will help you later on down the road. And we did identity explorations, and it was great for me because I got to know them and then I could do good design. But on top of that, I got to sit in on these sessions where everyone was around a table and they'd look at each other and go, I didn't know you said it like that. And like, that's so inspiring. Those are the words that you use. And I didn't know that that was your origin story. And so I'd receive calls after from members of their team and they'd say, I'm focused, I'm creative, I know where I'm supposed to go right now. I have a sense of trust from my bosses because they know that I was a part of that exploratory process. So very empowering for me as a designer, but very, very empowering for teams. And I felt like I was giving them this extra something in doing this work, even though ultimately what I wanted to give them was this creative, expressive stuff like the logos and the websites and all that. I realized this identity work was also a really big, powerful part of it. So in 2015, the way I was describing this process of identity work was something like this. Okay, we start with a strong corporate culture, your identity, which allows you to integrate creativity into your workplace. You connect with like-minded, engaged employees. You engage your community. You have open dialogue. You generate ideas. And then there's this sustainable action. And then you start the cycle again. So it's this reflective process of getting to know yourself, connecting with your stakeholders, and then becoming creative. I was talking about this, but what I was delivering was stuff like this, which was, you know, web design and logos and all that. And so there was this, it was too much, you know. I was just like wearing too many hats. And so in 2015, mid-2015, I decided I can't wear those hats anymore. And that looks so bad on this, but there's a weird shadow on that logo. I started the Tap-In team to help companies to tap into their identity. And so mid-2015, I thought, this is going to be amazing. People are ready now. We're going to do brand work. We're going to do culture work. It's going to be fantastic. The first year was incredibly, incredibly challenging. 2016, I was like the brand cheerleader, went to every single event, gave out free content, just wanted to support people. Like, yay, you need a brand, you need a brand, you need a brand. I was like lugging around this brand word, and it was exhausting. But eventually, about a year in, the seeds that I'd planted started to germinate. So in 2017, mid-2017, which brings us to the name of this presentation, mid-2017, I had some really solid clients. Air Canada was one of them, and everybody knows that name, so it's nice to drop it. And I had a couple startups that I was supporting as well, which I was really excited about, that did very, very well in Montreal. One called Mindset, and one called Chic Marie. Not that it really matters, because I'm not a name dropper, but the three of those were kind of my summer of work. And work was great. They were happy. I should have been happy, but really what I felt was a lot of frustration and anxiety. And I realized that I was going through another point of discomfort, similar to the one that I'd gone through when I was at that interior design company, and that I needed to dig deep and connect with and tap into my own identity again. And so in October, I phased out my clients, and I decided to do complete brand work on the Tap-In team. I worked with my therapist because my personal identity is a big part of my company identity. I worked with a corporate storyteller. I worked with instructional designers, and the results were incredibly profound for me. And one of the big things that I realized was that although I was talking about brand and culture and all these like output related things, what I wasn't talking about was the vision that was driving it. And what I ended up uncovering, which was really important for me, is that this core belief of mine, which is that companies who are courageous enough to rally people around their vision, they create magnetic movements. And I believe that regardless of what it is that you do, you are creating a movement around things that matter to you. And I want to encourage companies to first connect with that vision, but then have the courage to actually share it. Because when they do, their work becomes amplified because the people who care about it as well connect with that vision. This is when you become magnetic. I realized in doing all this work on the company with myself, doing a lot of writing about what my process was, that I was using a three-step process. I was using a three-step process for me, and I was using a three-step process for my clients. Those three steps are discovery, decisiveness, connections. And this is what I see as leading people to creative courage. The challenge here, The challenge here is that discovery is really uncomfortable. It takes time to get to know yourself. It takes time to articulate vision. It takes time to say, you know what, that's not us. And it's hard to say, you know what, that's not us. It's hard to look at insights and decide for yourself what feels right and what doesn't. And so oftentimes, leaders jump over this part. But then when you land here without doing discovery, when you're deciding what strategies to develop, what tactics to develop, what tech to use, what language to use, if you haven't done the discovery work to figure out who you are in all of this, then all the choices that you're making here are based on assumptions. And they're based on what you believe other people want to hear from you. They're based on what you think your market wants to hear, or they're based on industry standards, or they're based on what your parents told you you should be saying. But people do that because people jump to the discovery piece because that, or to the decisiveness piece because the discovery is uncomfortable. However, when you go through the discomfort, when you are comfortable in the discomfort, you are able to establish a strategic position and a stance that not only feels important for you as an individual or as a company, but is also viable to the market and important to the market. And that's when, in the moment when you're building out your connection strategies and you're actually talking with your market, engaging your team, engaging your partners, engaging your investors, they're able to actually jump on board and your strategies are so much more effective. Are you all with me? Does this resonate? But you need to be comfortable in the discomfort. What I realized also in doing this writing is that creative courage is a cycle. It's a cycle that I went through and that I continue to go through over and over and over again. And it's a cycle that I want to help teams go through. Because when you adopt this cycle of discovery, decisiveness, connections, when you become comfortable in the discovery process, you recognize it as a moment to grow and as a moment to evolve. And you want to embrace it. You want to sit in the discovery process. And the thing is that the more you do it, the more deeply you know yourself, and the faster the cycle becomes. The more quickly you fall on decisiveness, the more quickly you're able to establish a stance, and the more quickly you're able to connect with the right stakeholders. We evolve through the discomfort. In fact, when I talk to leaders, they don't lead. Is this going to work now? Yes. Leadership doesn't happen here or here. Leadership happens through the valleys. It happens in the moments of discomfort. Leaders need to be courageous enough to allow their teams to sit in those moments of discovery so that they can articulate who they are as individuals and what drives them. In fact, the more we do it, the more comfortable we become in change, and the more comfortable we become in growth. So I believe leading through that valley is key to becoming communicative teams, trusting teams, and therefore creative teams, innovative teams. All of this coming back to my own story of tapping into my identity, I believe leading with courage starts with self-love. And I don't think we talk about love enough in business. I don't think we talk about self-love enough at all. What I hope to bring people, what I hope to bring myself, and what I hope to bring the companies that I work with is not only self-awareness, but a sense of self-acceptance and a sense of self-love. Because I believe that leaders who are able to express that self-love create a space where their team can adopt self-love, where individuality can thrive, where diversity can thrive, where diverse perspectives can come together so that everyone can become creative. And what I truly believe, and how this all connects to dreams and humanity and technology, is that I really believe that self-love will lead to better businesses and better communities and honestly a better world. Because when we are kinder to ourselves, we allow room to other people to be kinder to themselves as well. And this is when we can truly connect, and this is when we can truly build together. And I know this might sound idealistic, but I'm going to hold that close to my heart anyways and allow that to drive me forward. So thank you, and I have an ask. Please add me on LinkedIn. I'm very active. I share all kinds of videos. Please take out your phones right now and add me on LinkedIn. And I'm on I'm on Instagram at the Tap-In Team. That's also my Twitter handle, but I never tweet. And you can find me on Facebook. And yeah, so add me on LinkedIn. My name is Erin, E-R-I-N, Willett, W-I-L-L-E-T-T. Thank you very much